Welcome everyone to the video. Welcome to the channel. Um, this is going to be episode 3, and we're going to jump into a bit of a, I guess, a battle arena is what it feels like. Something where people have strong feelings on different sides, and that's a part of this channel. Is I want to dive into these difficult topics, these topics that really challenge social norms, and kind of give you my thoughts. We'll definitely look at history a little bit, kind of try to explain it with history, or at least give some insight into what you know the past was like. In this one, we'll dive a little bit in at the very minute amount into biology, and definitely look at how I feel, and my thoughts and my opinions on this as well too, and a little bit of what I believe as well. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the debate on him, her, they. Uh, it's something bigger that has grown a lot bigger than just using it in a sentence in grammar. It's become a huge topic. It was not only that, it was I think it was there was it was mentioned in the recent State of the Union as well too, or at least talked about briefly. I didn't watch State of the Union, um, but I saw some clippets and snips from that. And on the surface, definitely feels just like like language, like when we're learning English, or learning English or learning Spanish, or the proper ways, I guess I should say, to use words in English. And like, 'cause we all grow up with, we're, we grow up and we start using it. And then you go to school and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to use, past tense or or past tense or current or whatever. How do you formulate sentences and essays and all that? Um, but it's really become over the last few years, it's grown beyond that, and really touches on biology, uh, yeah, faith, what you believe in, your personal identity, and freedom as well too, and what it even means to be a human. So it's not simple. It's sensitive. I definitely believe it's deeply personal. Um, Real quick, first thing, right out of the gate, I always like to mention this right at the beginning. I didn't mention it right at the beginning of this one, but I don't consider myself a Christian in the way a Christian traditionally. My how I believe and how I practice it differ far too much. So therefore, I do not classify myself as a Christian. Um, Also, too, another thing I want to mention in that because of this is I also don't really believe in heavy government oversight or government reach. I like smaller governments. I don't like necessarily the government to be in every aspect of my life. I like and I tend to vote according to for that, for people that or for candidates that are more geared towards smaller governments, because I don't like large governments. Smaller governments. I like, let us, breathe a little bit. So that's how I tend to vote. If you want to know, that's how I tend to vote. And that's how I tend to think. I want, more control over, I don't want the government to control my life, is basically what I'm talking about here. Um, and I definitely believe there is, a necessity for, government at a certain size, but I don't believe it to be a huge, gigantic, just looming thing over all of us. In my opinion, smaller the government, the better. That's my opinion. Um, and so, yeah, we're gonna take this slow. These videos tend to be about 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes or so. Um, and first, I'm also gonna, probably substitute words here. Just because I don't want to get, flagged on YouTube as, explicit material or anything like that. So, I may insinuate certain things here. So humans, like most, or I should say, you know, we are a we reproduce, right? Everything reproduces here on this planet. Um, and we're born with certain biological traits that will classify us either as a male or as a female. And reproduction requires two, complementary systems, right? You need, well, we'll get into this. That pairing, isn't necessarily political, it's biological. Okay. There are some species though that can spontaneously change from male to female or vice versa, or some are born as what's the right? I think it's hermaphrodite, I believe. So nature is quite complex and will figure out a way for reproduction to continue a species. So, um, humans are not those kinds of species that I just mentioned right now. And um, so biology itself, will set the boundaries, right? Uh, Males, I'm a male, I cannot get pregnant. I don't have the necessary organs for pregnancy. And that's just it's just a fact in biology, right? It's the boundary that has been set. Um, but biology alone doesn't necessarily explain the entire human experience. Um, Animals, they operate largely on instinct, right? They're going to survive, try to survive at all costs possible. They're going to compete and they will reproduce. Humans share all these, right? Um, but we also can reflect. We can reason. Reasoning, some people say, oh, we're different from animals because we can reason. Well, animals can reason too. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean differentiate us from animals, because animals can reason as well too. But we create symbols. We ask, and this is the key right here. We ask not just what is, but what should be. Okay. And we can override that instinct and we override it all the time. Um, and, think of firefighters, right? They have to override that fear of fire. All animals run from fire. They see fire, they run the opposite direction. We have, as humans, we have this ability to override instinct and can run towards danger. Obviously, like if our family is at risk, firefighters, they, put their lives, people that firefighters, people in the military, they don't run away from battle. They run into battles. Uh, Police officers, they go to places where, most common people do not want to go, but yet they are trained to be able to override all that and go into harm's way, where typically instinct would be escape harm, get away from it as quickly as possible. So we always override our instincts all the time. Um, and, that reflective space between just impulse and action is really what makes us uniquely human. Although we do know a lot of people, and I know people who just simply just are on instinct and that's it. I think we all know people like that. Once you start introducing abstract thought, then you start introducing philosophy. And once you start introducing philosophy, then you start introducing disagreements, you know? So, and that's, people will probably disagree with me, and that's perfectly normal and perfectly fine and perfectly human to be in disagreement. I don't want everybody to agree with everybody. That'd be a boring, boring lifestyle. Okay, now a little bit on history and a little bit about, yeah, I think males or men tend to look at these people as a symbol and the ultimate symbol of masculinity, right? And we all, who are these people? They are the people of ancient Sparta or Spartans, and they're depicted as, these big, just muscular men. A man's a man. Okay. But the ancient world had a very different. It was very different when it comes to relationship norms or normal relationships. Marriage, especially in Sparta, was often about lineage and duty. It was a duty to the state to keep your people going. You got to keep reproducing to keep more Spartans, or you have to keep having more Spartans to keep Sparta, right? To have a Sparta. However, same-sex relationships, oh, I said the word. I didn't say that. Hopefully, I don't get flagged here. But okay, I'm trying not to say those words. Just like I said, I don't want to get flagged by YouTube here. Existed in various forms, uh, across Greek, not just in Sparta, but across Greek society. It was considered normal. As a matter of fact, especially in Sparta, from a young age, you spent most of your life with men, and women spent most of their time with women and would come together for to continue the line of Spartans. And so history doesn't fit into modern, yeah, really like all these. We take what we want out of those, we take what we want from the past, from history, to apply it nowadays to what we have now, or to what we want to see ourselves in. What's the right word to frame that? Uh, we take from history just what we want to see, and not the entire picture. Um, then Christianity comes along, right? And we know it really, really became the major religion when Emperor Constantine made it the rule of the land, or the religion of the land, of the known land, or the dominant force. And then at that point, male and female marriage, became tied to a covenant, divine design, so to speak. And over the centuries now, that framework has really shaped Western culture. So in today's world, we're not really necessarily debating biology anymore. Now it's a part of religion. And that religion has worked its way into society, into social norms. And so we're really debating moral frameworks now. And in today's world, especially now more than ever with modern medicine, you know, people can change. People can change their, you could change from male to female, vice versa. At least on the surface. You can also, do hormone therapy and all that to even further the change. Um, and I definitely, what do I believe? I believe that people should all have the choice to do what they wish. Obviously, not harming other people, you know, you're still, on good moral standing, you're not, while you're not, conforming to what the majority is doing, you're still a good person. But, that choice, having that choice, it must be a well-informed choice, because when you change something surgically, that's uh, seems it seems less and less permanent as we go forward in time, but, it's a pretty permanent thing. Um, and, the choice must be like I said, choice must be informed, and I definitely think age matters, maturity matters, your mental health state matters, because, like I said, these are life-altering decisions. There should be zero coercion. Did I say that right? Coercion? I can't pronounce the word right. There should be zero coercion. For some reason, it doesn't sound right. No pressure from anywhere, right? No ideology being, forcing someone one way or the other. It should be informed freedom, you know? Um, and like I said, there are definitely things that cannot be fully changed. Biology, the structure still exists. Um, Acknowledging that isn't necessarily hatred. It's just it's what is the limits of biology. Science limits that. Um, but these limits do not erase dignity and agreement and acceptance. Agreement and acceptance aren't necessarily the same thing. You can disagree and yet still affirm someone's humanity. And that's really, really what I want to look at is the humanity side of things. Um, we should definitely never be led, by hatred. Definitely not in the name of biology or in the name of truth or faith. If you're a Christian, definitely ask yourself. If you're a Christian, you should be asking yourself, what would Jesus do in this? With this, what would Jesus be doing? Right? Um, Jesus. Uh, I know that this isn't really a direct relationship, but Jesus ate with someone who he knew was going to betray him, who knew who was going to uh, set him up. But yet he still ate with this person. Would you eat with somebody that you knew was going to betray you? He prayed to forgive everyone who was involved in the him ended up hanging on the cross. Um, he moved towards those who were excluded from society, trying to make everyone feel as if they were normal, right? Um, would he agree with everything culturally happening today? More than likely not. Um, but would he withdraw from people? Would he cast those people out? No, he wouldn't. And, conviction without humility just simply becomes arrogance. Now, and what do I believe? And before I close, I definitely want to say something personal and, you know, what I believe. I believe in God. Okay? I definitely believe there is more than just this physical existence that we have. I believe in heaven. I believe in eternal life. Um, I believe that, that one day we're going to leave these mortal bodies behind here. Okay. And the deepest part of us isn't the fleshy part of us. It isn't the tissue, the muscle, the bones, the eyes, you know. We're going to move beyond that. If you believe in a soul, if you believe in the consciousness, that I believe is what moves on after this, after I'm done with this part of me. I'm done with it. My soul moves on. And something that I've always questioned, even when I was little, I've always questioned this, like, why, if I'm going on to eternity, if I'm going on to heaven, why? Because we would always have these songs in church. We're going to go to the streets of gold. We're all going to have mansions and the pearly gates, and all the gemstones of the world. Why do I need all that? If I'm in heaven, if I'm fulfilled already, and I'm in heaven, why do the streets need to be paved with gold? Why do I need a mansion? Do I need a mansion? Do I need a mansion? Why mansion in heaven? What would be the point of having a mansion there? Do I get a fast car with it? Do I get a Lamborghini with it? Why would I need any of that? It never made sense to me why I would need that stuff in heaven or in eternity. And the same thing, what would be the point of gender in eternity? Right? What would be the point of being a I'm a male in heaven. I'm a female in heaven. What's the point of that? There would be no point to it. The male and female, that's tied to reproduction. A lot of stuff is tied to reproduction, believe it or not. Even the sun has a role to play in reproduction. Um, uh, and reproduction is tied to mortality uh, and survival of our species. But if we're no longer mortal, we're no longer reproducing. we exist in eternity in heaven, you know, why would gender even be necessary? Why would it be necessary to have a gender? Why? And, you know, if you, believe in heaven, believe in an eternity, then, we're not flesh anymore, you know. The flesh stays here on earth. We're something deeper, something beyond these categories, and I definitely believe if there's if you believe in God, I believe in God, and and there's this, being, this entity out there, and that can speak life into existence. And don't God doesn't even need to speak; just needs to think, and it's done. Just needs to come up. Oh, there's a thought. Boom, life is there. Boom. So why would we put these earthly labels on such a being, such an entity? It makes it it makes that entity feel smaller. It brings that entity down to our level when that God is not at our level, right? God is not at our level. God's way above out here, you know? And, our soul eventually transcend. It doesn't mean, because our souls, it doesn't mean that erases the biology here on earth. We're living in these bodies. These bodies do matter. Um, but we shouldn't confuse the temporary vessel with with our eternal self. And, you know, maybe, the labels we argue about down here, you know, depending on what you believe, you know, these labels, they don't follow us to eternity. You know, they won't, I'm going to suddenly be in eternity. I'll be like, I'm a man. I'm going to go work out and build nothing up. Doesn't matter at that point anymore. So that's a little bit of what I believe. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Um, but it's a very, it's a topic that's continuing to grow and grow, and like I said, I vote for less government. I don't want government involved. I would like the least amount of government involved in my life as possible. So anything that's more towards less government involvement. I don't believe in government involvement in everything, mind you. Least amount in everything that we do. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.